Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to deconstruct the principles behind some truly world-class growth marketing, all pulled from a playbook that's been tested and proven over 2 decades at the very highest level.
So let's just jump right in with a puzzle. Imagine you're a marketer in Italy, and you know your in-store displays are failing. You can feel it. But the problem is you have zero data to prove why. And even more importantly, you have no way to convince your bosses to change things up. Well, this is the story of how a surprisingly simple, almost old-fashioned tool gave them the exact data they needed to push for a major strategic shift, one that ended up rolling out across an entire continent. The solution was, completely outside the box. The thinking was, what if we put our display right next to our biggest competitor? It would force a direct comparison and hopefully get people to engage more. And to prove it, they literally hired a part-timer, went into the stores with a stopwatch, and just manually timed how long people looked. No fancy analytics, just raw, on-the-ground data. And this, right here, just shows the power of creative thinking. Customer dwell time shot up by a whopping 140%. The data was so clear, so undeniable, it convinced the retail director right there on the spot. And that simple strategy, it got rolled out all across Europe. That clever, hands-on approach is really the perfect way to introduce the marketer behind these strategies, YH Kim. So let's zoom out for a second and really look at the core philosophy that drives these kinds of incredible results.
And this quote says it all, really. It's not just about flashy ideas. It's about a relentless, almost obsessive focus on being data-driven and delivering a real, measurable impact on the business. That's been the thread weaving through an entire 2-decade career. And you can actually see this mindset just getting bigger and more impactful over 20 years. From planning for these iconic, huge brands like Chanel, to leading the entire digital strategy for a tech giant like LG, and then, finally, to building completely new ventures from scratch. Okay, now let's unpack 2 core principles from this playbook. We'll start with this idea of how a huge challenge, a real barrier, can be flipped on its head and turned into a massive win. So we're going to look at 2 really interesting cases. In the first one, customers literally couldn't try the product. And in the second, a product was basically written off by insiders as being way too niche to ever go anywhere.
First up, this experience barrier. So the company had a brand new phone with a really unique user experience. The problem? The only way to get it, to understand what made it special, was to go to a store and hold it. And that's just way too much work for most people.
And the breakthrough here was just so simple, it's brilliant. If the customer can't come to the product, why not bring the product's core experience to the customer? So the team launched this super lightweight app that just simulated the user experience, totally getting rid of the need for a store visit.
And the results? Well, they pretty much speak for themselves. The app was a monster success. It hit the #1 download spot in its category on the Google Play Store, and just like that, they demolished a huge roadblock that was standing in their way. All right, next challenge, the niche product barrier. This was for a really unique product that a lot of people inside the company thought was a total lost cause. They said it was too niche and there was absolutely no budget for a big traditional launch.
So what did they do? They threw out the traditional playbook completely. Instead of a big press release, they just gave the product to just two, micro-influencers on Facebook and let them create totally authentic content, just showing how it fit into their lives. And what's so incredible about this is the return on investment. A tiny low-cost action with just 2 creators generated over 7.6 million organic views. It proved that this niche product actually had massive viral potential that everyone else had completely missed.
Okay, so those are some really clever, scrappy tactics, but how do you scale that kind of thinking? Let's take a look at how this same mindset works on a massive, multinational campaign where the stakes are way, way higher.
And the challenge here was a beast. Revenue growth in Europe had completely stalled out. Brand preference was low, and whatever they did had to work across 9 different countries all at the same time. No pressure, right? The strategy was this beautiful 2-part approach. First, the science. Use data from Google and Meta to target people who were already in the market to buy. And second, the art. Combine that precision with the raw cultural power of partnerships with massive global brands like Star Wars and music superstars BTS. And what happens when you combine that art and science? You get a flood, a huge influx of over 10 million highly interested consumers pouring directly into the company's website. That's how you drive massive growth right at the top of the funnel.
So at the end of the day, it always comes back to the impact you can measure.
The numbers have to tell the story. So let's do a quick, rapid-fire rundown of the results from all of these campaigns.
I mean, the scale here is just staggering. Over 75 million views for one YouTube influencer program, another 40 million for a single global brand campaign. We are talking about reach on an absolutely massive scale.
And in that really complex European market, the results were just as powerful. On top of those 10 million website visitors, the campaign delivered an incredible 120% lift in brand consideration. That means people weren't just clicking, their opinions about the brand were fundamentally changing.
Okay, so what can we pull from all this? Let's try to distill everything we've seen into a simple, actionable playbook. What are the core principles here?
It really boils down to these 4 things. 1. Get the data. Do whatever it takes, even if it means using a stopwatch. 2. If there's a barrier to experiencing your product, don't talk about it, deliver the experience directly. 3. That thing people call niche, turn it into your greatest asset with targeted influence. And finally, 4. To scale your success, you combine precision data with the power of huge cultural partnerships.
And that really brings us full circle, leaving us with one final thought to take away. It goes right back to the beginning. So, what critical, supposedly unmeasurable problem in your world is just sitting there, waiting for a creative solution, maybe even one that's as simple as a stopwatch?